How did you launch him 80 feet in the air?
You told me to boat flip him!
I didn't tell you to launch him 78 feet in the air.
I flipped him in the boat, didn't I?
Send it to the moon.
I sent it! You said boat flip him!
Oh, yeah.
Do you fish? No. You know, people who don't fish think that fishing is lazy or boring, but it is the complete opposite. There are 100 little decisions to be made, variables to be considered, and you're never quite sure what made the difference. Did I cast too high, too far to the left? Did I reel it in too slow or too fast? Is the lure too shiny or too dull? Do I stay here or should I go over there? And you know it's not luck, but you do not know by how much. Because I am never disappointed out here, because I don't expect anything, because anything is possible. I can be hopeful out here, even in failure. Because I know if I just go out there around that tree, it might be different. Something might be different. Something I do might make a difference.
On my property, you didn't win in my yard.
Wait.
All of you.
Daddy, chill.
What the hell is even that?
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your host, Thomas Ahrens. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you jacked up, I don't know what will.
Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to Monday Night Live, a very special Monday night. This is our 50th, I guess I was going to say anniversary, but I've never been 50 before. This is our 50th Monday night, our 50th Monday night live stream that we have done. I wish I could say it was consecutively, but I think we took off some stupid holidays like Christmas or New Year's or something like that. We have a fantastic show lined up for you today. We're heading back to the Potomac River. I kid a lot that in Northern Virginia, at least where we live, Maryland area, once April hits, you're at the Potomac about 38-7 times between now and like June. And we're in the heat of it. I had another tournament this past weekend there with the Antietam Bassmaster. And I'm going to be talking to a guy that has figured this place out, apparently, because he absolutely smoked him. I felt pretty confident when I uploaded a fish pic, like, oh, I might do pretty well. And this guy decided to say, hold my beer. I'm going to try to catch like 130 inches of fish. It was a lot of fun. I did have a fun little contest that I did on Friday night, just for everybody, which was you had to guess SB's winning weight. And if you guessed it, you won a gift card. So I went through Facebook and Instagram and I can tabulated it. Robert L. Bartikins, you won. You had 10 pounds, 21 ounces, and Matt Streichel caught 10 pounds, 7 ounces. So you won a gift card to Jake's Bait and Tackle. I will post this, of course, after the show. But without further ado, the man, the myth, the legend, Josh Reese. Josh, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, man. How are you, Thomas?
So before the show, you said like these live streams are no big deal. I've done the press tour before. How many live streams have you been on?
No, I've never done a live stream, so just watched them, so I kind of know what's about to go down. So keyed in on that.
If you keep doing as well as you're doing, dude, this is going to be kind of be a norm for you.
I don't know, man. The rest of the schedule, we can talk a little bit about that. Also, it's going to get tougher, I feel. Early on in the schedule, my goal was really to knock out Anna and Potomac and do it as best as I can on those, because some of those, 5 lakes and some of these things are a little bit more challenging to kind of figure out. So we'll see how the rest of the season goes.
We have to, before we get to Potomac, we have to talk about just everything in general. Because like last year, you had a big win. You absolutely freaking smoked it with, I think it was, I was going to say Moomaw. That is the wrong lake. That's how good my brain is. The Battle of 5 Lakes Part 2, where you got to pick between Mooney. Mooney, Honey Run, and all them.
Yep.
You killed it there. You go into this season now, you're not, I would say, a freshman. You've been there, you've done that. What was your preparation mentally and then preparation for Lake Anna?
Oh, yeah, man. So that's actually great because I spend a lot of time on the mental prep for tournaments. And I'm a big believer, like, the mental side of the game is really the biggest part of fishing, especially in tournaments, right? If you're just out there fun fishing, whatever, if you're having a good time, that's great. But if you're fishing tournaments, it's all about the mental game. And so, for me, that's making sure I'm as prepared as possible as I approach the body of water. Like, I want to get everything kind of to a comfort level, so I feel like not rushed and not stressed, like going into the tournament, right? Like, I try to clear out as much of the noise as I can prior to tournament day. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, with life, but that's kind of my strategy and approach. And I do a lot of research, like over the winter, like when they post the schedule, I start doing a lot of, map study and just visualizing and thinking about, where am I going to launch, right? Because in kayak tournaments, the launch I've found is like the most important thing that's going to make or break. Because if you find yourself in a place that just isn't gelling, it's not even if there's no fish there. If it's not gelling with how you fish and like to kind of set up with it, yeah, it's like it won't jive as well, right? So I do a lot of study, on that and try to just get mentally prepared.
What made you get so mentally prepared in that spot? Like, was it a spot that, because that made no sense even when I said it. Why did you pick the area of the lake? Did you want dirtier water versus cleaner? And for people that don't know, to set it up, if you don't know about Lake Anna, it's very unique where you can fish muddy water or clean depending on where you want to go.
hmm Yeah, for me, it's a little bit of history. It's a place that I'm familiar with in the Mid Lake area, and just kind of have a good lay of the land out there as far as how it sets up and like where they're probably going to be this time of the year, because we fished last year around the same time, and I feel like I was able to kind of figure some things out that I was able to build upon like this time. So it was a pretty easy choice for me. And I feel like I kind of locked in on some kind of pattern. I fell short of the fifth fish, but was able to put together like a solid bag, even with four fish, and make it into the top 10, which was crazy.
Was the lake fishing hard? I
Oh, yeah.
say that,
I think so. Yeah.
was it fishing hard in practice too?
Yeah, it was. So in that tournament, I did not get to practice the day before like I usually do. I try to go out, but they had the tournament. They had moved the tournament date to Sunday, so I didn't want to be out there getting in the way of all the people who were actually fishing on Saturday and all that. I had fished the lake 2 weeks before, and it was definitely tough. I was not able to really put together much of anything. So going into tournament day, I didn't know how it was going to go. Like I was like, we'll see. So yeah, but I ended up figuring something out that has worked for me out there before, which is just dragging a jig on some points, and was able to kind of, they were a little bit shallower than I was expecting them, but I was able to kind of figure that out and adjust pretty quickly, which I thought was cool.
How did you settle on the jig? That was something to me when I fished the Antietam Bass Masters. We went down there for our 2-day event, and I eventually got to jig on my practices and stuff. But you didn't have I don't think as much practice as I went down there for. So how did you quickly deduce that?
It was kind of a spot thing that I knew about where they had been biting there before, and biting kind of a jig deep. So I just started there, and sometimes you kind of find something early, like you just stumble into it sometimes. Because for me, a lot of times it's like, okay, I'm on my fifth, rod and nothing's biting yet, so that's the typical experience. But in that one, I was fortunate that I started getting some bites early on. I was just kind of fan casting, so I kind of got to the spot that I thought they were going to be. I started deep, and they weren't really there, so I just kind of kept moving towards the bank, and sure enough, I started getting bit. So that was what kind of clued me in.
Lake Anna is such a fickly beast. It really is. And then I was blessed to have the individual that actually won the first NVKBA event on the show. And that episode will be dropping here shortly, guys. I'm sorry. I apologize for my tardiness with episodes, and I know this is kind of out of whack, but it'll be uploaded this week as well. And, he talked about, not to give so much away, but he was fishing a very obvious spot where fish, usually get replenished. Again, I'm not going to spoil it for the episode. He talks about it there. Were you worried at all that you would have to share water with a bunch of other anglers?
Not really, no. A couple of boats kind of filtered in and out through the day. Some kayaks. It was kind of a steady flow, but I really wasn't too worried about it. There were I got cut off a couple times out there, or at least I felt like it. But it's just part of the gig on a busy weekend out there. But no, I was able to kind of find my spots, and talking about the mental game though, like I got 4 fish, and they were a decent set of fish, decent bag, and I was feeling pretty good, and I made the mistake of telling myself, okay, all I got to do is just get that one more fish, and mentally it was almost like I was trying to sort of force it versus kind of fishing loose, fishing the moment, because up until that point, it was kind of like you know, it's not that I didn't care, but it was like, I'm just gonna roll with whatever happens. I had no practice day. I was on my small kayak with no fish finder, you know, so I was just kind of fishing around blind, really, and found a couple of things that worked for me. So, you know, I felt like I kind of spun out after that, once the bite kind of got a little bit tougher in the afternoon. Um, but you know, that's a learning lesson, you know, as far as like the mental game, how you kind of prepare for a tournament day and kind of get your mindset right.
With that win, and I'm going to call it a win because, and I talked about this a little bit right now. If people that you're following me on social media, I'm talking about a streak, and the streak is quality finishes. And I taught baseball for 16 years. That was my primary source of income. I'm big into statistics, and I don't think it's necessarily just tournaments you win, because if you win 3 tournaments but then always finish 189th, like I don't know like how you could figure that your stats. And so the stats I'm covering this year for me is just a quality finish. Like for me, it's like 20th place and above, and I kept that streak going. The way you finished top 10, yeah, you didn't win it, you didn't catch your whole limit, but damn, you should come away from that feeling like, all right, this is a good start to the year, right?
Yeah, I felt great. Absolutely. Because I went into this season kind of the same. Like, I kind of found some success towards the tail end of last season. That was, you know, where I really started to lock in, and I wanted to carry that momentum into this season, but not from a win perspective, more from like fishing consistently, you know, like if I can do better at just finding bites, catching a limit. I mean, honestly, that's usually my goal in any tournament, is just get a limit, even if it's a small limit. Typically, you're doing pretty well in the standings if you can just kind of get there, and then there's a mental component to that too, of it kind of takes the pressure off, and you can kind of unwind and focus on upgrading, and you know, it's you get to a better mental state overall, I feel, in the middle of the tournament if you can get that early.
So you absolutely smoke a top 10, and then we're going into the Potomac. And then we got a question here that we're going to get into here in a moment. We got Derek Marshall. How's the grass looking on the river? As always, guys, drop your questions down below and we'll get them answered. And then I will pick some random questions that I really like, and they'll win a gift card to Jake's Bait and Tackle. So Derek, I'm going to answer your question in a minute here. Let's just tee up the Potomac River tournament. So anyway, 2 weeks ago now, I think it is, you have the event. What's your approach going into it?
Yeah, so I had kind of figured out where I wanted to fish early on, because I was looking for, again, kayak fishing tournaments. I like to maximize my options, right? So I found a place that has a good mixture of hardcover, docks, grass, pads, some laydowns, things like that. And I said, hey, you know, and it's in a concentrated area, right? So I didn't have to travel very far if I needed to kind of make a change in the middle of the day. And this was like a learning that I had from last year, because I fished the Potomac tournament last year and I blanked, and I was not finding what I needed to find, and it was all the same. Like there was nothing different where I was, and you had to go a long way to find something that remotely looked any different, and so it just wasn't working for me. And so I wanted to set it up from the start of something that's has more options. That way I can cut over and do different things. I started on docks and practice, and that just never happened. So I quickly pivoted from that point, and then yeah, kind of let things play out from there.
And then if you guys don't know, you also have a YouTube channel. So he is documented for Lake Anna and the Potomac as well. He goes into everything there. So that's absolutely, go check out his channel. Link in the episode description down below. And also, guys, please hit the like button. We got over 30 people watching when we combine Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. If you hit the like, it actually helps it in the algorithm so more people see this. Why did you pick, like, you in that Belmont, Occoquan area, the river? It is a complete, I thought it was going to be a shit show, basically. I thought Mattawoman in that place, there would be so many boats there. If you guys are not aware, Mr. Bass was going out there for Maryland and Pennsylvania. So Pennsylvania went first. I think it was Thursday, Friday. And then Maryland's Mr. Bass was Saturday, Sunday. Plus there was 3 kayak clubs. And if you look on a map for your map study, that area of Mattawoman and Belmont, I was like, oh my God, how many kayaks are going to be there? Were you worried at all about the pressure?
Not too much. I took a gamble on it and said, I can usually I can work around the pressure and try to find, what I found on the Potomac is, and you were talking about this on a live or something recently, where somebody will catch a fish and then everybody like just goes over there. Well, there's fish more in more places than just that one spot in the river, right? So I try to kind of avoid the crowds in most cases, and try to find kind of on the edges where a little spot might be that somebody's kind of overlooked.
Spot within a spot.
Yep, exactly. So there were 4, 5, 6, 7 kayaks out there, maybe a handful of bass boats at any one time, because it was kind of a steady flow in and out. So I want to say there was only about 5 or 6 bass boats out there kind of in my general area at any one time, and they were spread out pretty far out. I didn't really have too much problems. The only thing I saw out there was one of the guys like just floored the thing in the no wake zone trying to get back to the channel, like right next to some like kayaks and other bass boats, and I guess he was running late to the weigh-in or something, but I thought that was kind of obnoxious. But everything else, everybody was being civil, everybody was giving each other space, they were communicating, there was really no issues on the water.
So you mentioned this at the Lake Anna event, and I don't know if you mentioned this here, but you have 2 kayaks. Which kayak did you choose for this one, and was it electrical powered?
I have a PDL 106. So for the Anna tournament, it was not electrical powered. It was human powered only, and I didn't even have a battery on it. There was no fish find or anything. The reason is I have my PDL or my Autopilot 120, and I'm waiting on getting a trailer because it's too big of a beast to like car top that thing. So I'm waiting on that. I'm still waiting. I thought it was going to be done by now. So I had to kind of make some pivots and just fish out of my PDL. On Potomac, though, I did put a Bixby motor on the back, which is something I can put on and off very quickly if I have to, just to prep for a tournament. Because if I don't need one, like I won't put it on. Like in Anna, I was fishing pretty close to the launch, so I didn't need that. But I was going to make a longer run for Potomac. So I put that on, and that helped a lot because I was able to kind of get out there to my spot and not be winded.
Strategy wise, and I want to go back to practice because I watched your YouTube video, and how long did it take you to find that spot and know that's where you're going to start? And then on top of that, how many fish did you feel like you're willing to catch before you're like, all right, I gotta leave this place be?
About 5 or 6 fish through the day. I wanted to confirm that it was working. And then also, this is what was funny. I had a whim about a lipless crankbait in shad color. And so I only had one in my basement, like tackle shop. And I went after Saturday or after Friday at practice, I went to see if I could find more, and I couldn't. So I was like, okay, I've only got one. So I was very protective of this one lipless crankbait because it seemed to be performing pretty well. So, and I actually lost it at the end of the tournament, but so I don't have it. But so I was like rotating out baits. So a lot of times what I'll do in practice is I want to just expand on things. Like if I find I'm getting bit, I'm kind of like, okay, let me try something else now and see if I can expand on it, because I feel like that gives me more options if I need to. And that could be a spot, that could be a depth, that could be a bait. I try to kind of mix it up a little bit once I feel like I've kind of, worked a spot. Probably 30 minutes is as long as I'll go. But this one, I was fishing a very concentrated spot. And I hunkered down and I did not move from this spot like all day on both practice and tournament day.
When you say a spot, and and this is how I really define it, guys, and keep your questions coming, and we'll get into them here in a minute. And I did this on the Patreon members only breakdown of my title, the way I approach tidal water. An area is Mattawoman Creek, and a spot is like a little area that you found. Would you say your little area was a football field size, the size of your kayak, just to see like how you're going to protect that, like to visualize it?
I would say football field size. Yeah,
Okay.
it was, bigger than a kayak, and I was moving in and out of different things through the day. So we can get into the tide and stuff and how that really affected things, but as that moved, I found myself kind of repositioning a couple of times. But yeah, it was not that big, but it was bigger than the size of my kayak. Some of the somebody asked a question about grass. There were places in there where the grass was definitely about the size of my kayak, though. Like I had to kind of scrounge up where that was, and I found it by, again, I didn't have my electronics or anything, so I just, with my lipless, I was pulling up some grass, and that's what told me it was there. So I would kind of use it to sense like how far out does this go, and it was still coming up. I feel like it was isolated patches right now in that
Yeah.
spot.
And Derek, just to add on to that, Aquia Creek has got really good vegetation right now. Mattawoman does. Belmont, Occoquan River, that whole massive bay, Occoquan Bay, that all has really, really good grass in it. And there's also some really good grass on the main stem of the river as well, especially when you get down towards, just above Aquia Creek there on the flats. So I hope that actually helps. There's not a lot of grass, and we talked about this with Jaconis episode. Above, like Pohick and up, it's really hard to find good grass right now. So good question. Let's see. And there's a huge comment going on here. We got Ben. It's not too big. It's not too big to car to, and then the big kayak is not too big to carry to. Just need good friends to help load it at the end of the day. Predator 136 on top of my car. And then we got one more from Ben here. I got Ben again is struggling to type. Big kayaks can go on the car. My Predator 136 is on my car. It helps to have a good friend. Ben, do you like that I read all those out together to get to the one that you wanted?
Ben's just showing off how swole he is, I guess. But no, you can. I mean, I've got a bad shoulder, and so I've got some things that prevent me from kind of going all in. But that is definitely something you want to like be aware of before you get a kayak, and what type of it is, how you're going to transport it, down to the body of water you're fishing. So
you figure out that you got a spot to start. You assume, because this is what's so weird about practice. I've had shit practices and done really good in a tournament, and I've had great practices and done terrible. But you have an idea. Before we get into tournament day, were you worried at all about getting out there with your battery and everything? Because, I mean, how far were you going to get from launch to the place?
that's a good question. It was about 30 minutes to get out there, which I know that I can do in my with my motor. I know that. So what I do is I almost never put it on the max speed, because that just drains your battery like crazy. So I go about like 75% power, which gets you like really good like power efficiency. You can still hit about 3.5 miles an hour, but you're not going to drain your battery that long, and so you'll have plenty of juice left for. Like I used it later in the day. It's not a trolling motor, but I was using it to fight current and kind of stay in a spot, because at one point the wind and the current started to rip a little bit. So I wanted to stay on one particular spot, and so it came in handy for that as well. So I was thankful that I had the juice. But yeah, I mean, the Bixby is a good platform. I know a lot of guys use some of the other, maybe more well-known brands, but I've found that one works for me. And now on the autopilot, I'm going to focus on just using the onboard motor for both motoring out to my spot and kind of the spot lock trolling situation.
That's really important for your strategy, because you think about, okay, it takes me 30 minutes to get out there, so I need to be out of bed by this time to drive down there to get there in time. So
Yep.
I maximize my day. And then you don't, luckily the Potomac has good cell service, but like if you fish like the Shenandoah River or the upper Potomac, it's a coin flip whether you can upload a fish or not.
Yeah. Yeah, I never had any problems out there, which is nice.
So it's go time, baby. It's the day of the event. You get out there. When do you get out to your spot for lines in? Is it right at go time or is it a little after?
It was a little after. So they had an early lines in time to kind of coordinate across the 3 tournaments. So I got out there maybe around 6:30-ish. Was kind of when I pulled up on my first spot, maybe a little bit before. And yeah, so what I had found in practice, and I had a strategy going into my tournament day, which was all based on the tides. So what I noticed in practice was high tide was in the morning. There was a lot of submerged lily pads in the area that I was fishing, and so what I found was if I ran jackhammer through those pads, I was getting bites. Um, they weren't super high quality bites, but I was getting them very consistently on a high tide pattern. And so as I said, okay, this is probably where I'm going to start and just kind of get that early confidence boost. Try to see if I can get a limit. Hey, if it's, dinks, that's fine. I'll use the rest of the day then to kind of build on that pattern. So that all fell into place. Like that's exactly where they were, and they were there for about an hour or 2 maybe, and then all of a sudden the bite kind of dried up a little bit, and so I had a backup plan, which I found again in practice, which was moving to the lipless and moving out past the edge of the pads and even past where the grass was to kind of, I think there was probably a grass edge there, because I was pretty far out. I mean, most of the bass boats, there was some guys that were like in the pads and they never moved like all morning. They just hunkered down, and everybody was kind of fishing a little bit more shallow. But I had found that running a lipless through this kind of grass was getting me bigger bites. I got a 17 in practice. So at that point, I let it alone in practice. I was like, okay, this will be my plan B. Once I kind of get a limit up shallow, I'll move out here as the tide moves when I feel it's right, and then start to expand on it. And sure enough, that also locked into place as well. It was crazy. Like I started catching I caught a couple 17s. I think it was like an 18 or something. And yeah, it was just a silver lipless. It was a shad pattern. And once I got to, I don't know why I did this, but once I got to a solid limit, I think I was looking at the standings. I was probably in like number 3, 4 or something like that at this point. I was like, well, I don't know why I switched to a different lipless, but I did. And it was another one I found that it was working. So probably just the bite tapered off, I think is what it was. So I switched over to kind of this bluegill pattern. But what I noticed most of all was really the sound was, I think, the big deal on these lipless. And it was kind of a real high-pitched rattle is what it was. So I think they were, attracted to that, kind of getting annoyed with that sound and kind of going after it. So yeah, so that was it. I also tried, I'm not the biggest believer in like colors and stuff, but I kind of keep it simple. But the chatterbait, I used like a black and blue one for a little while. I wasn't getting any bites on that at all. So I almost wonder if it was the one I was using had more of a chrome on it. So I think it was that chrome, like it was that flash, maybe had something to do with it. I mean, the water was pretty murky, but who knows?
Chrome and gold chrome works really well. If for all the Patreon members that are listening now, I just uploaded some footage from my tournament yesterday for you guys, and part of it was I was throwing a old color style Strike King lipless bait, and it's a chrome colored one, and just to try to get some bucks and get a limit real quick. It seems like it because it's dirty water, but the coolest thing I heard from a biologist is the water dirty to them or us? And if they live in an environment where water is off colored, at some point that just becomes theirs clear. And with the Potomac, I think they're kind of used to a lot of it.
Yeah, it's muddy a lot there, right? So until the grass kind of comes up and patches and cleans it, so I think it's just still pretty murky. And so that's what I noticed. Like definitely some vibration was needed to kind of get their attention. And yeah, so I put the chrome lipless back on at the end of the tournament. Again, don't really know why, but I just was trying stuff at this point, just to change it up. See, because the bite had really gotten tough in the afternoon, for me at least. It just kind of dried up. I was going way further in between any bites and catches. And so I got this giant bass on that lipless, like on the very edge of the pads, which by that point they had come, the pads were out of the water. And it was just kind of submerged grass there on that little edge. And so, yeah, I was able to kind of get that one. And I was beyond excited because, again, my strategy really is just get like a top 10, just come in and, get a limit. I felt really good about my limit at even before that fish. And it was incredible to get that pushed it over the edge and got the win.
And for you guys that don't know, it was 90.25 inches to win. And I think out of all three series, you had the largest bag, if you will, the most inches, which is, 90 inches. I didn't think it was possible on the river, and it's not because they're not there. It's because they're stubby. It's so weird. Like I caught one that was damn near 5 pounds, but he looked like somebody just took his tail and his nose and did this. The female was so fat, so fat.
Yeah, this one was a good one. I had to get a weight on him too because it was so big and chunky. So it ended up being 5 pounds. Damn. Geez, what was it? 15 ounces. So it was really incredible.
Mark B, did you have any issues with snakeheads during the tournament?
Not during the tournament. The only snakehead I caught the whole time was in practice, actually. I know they're around in that area, but no, I wasn't having any challenges there, which was great because, that I did not sign up for the side pot. And so, I don't have the extra length board and any of that stuff. And I'm just out there to, again, focus, right? I want to focus on as little complication as I can. And I feel like just where I am right now in my fishing journey, that helps me. So I didn't want sort of the distractions out there with snakeheads. So yeah, but I caught a pretty good one in practice.
I had a terrible time because I brought 2 crankbaits with me that were like custom colored, like old school colored yellow crankbaits. And it had to be a snakehead because it was bit in half. It was, as soon as I like leaned back on it, it shot off like a skid missile and then it just went thap. And then I come back with half a crankbait. So there's that one. And then I broke a spinning reel. If you guys don't know, follow me on Patreon. I talk about, I use a lot of braid and spinning reel stuff when you're throwing these lighter lipless, because I'll use the finesse lipless a lot of times too, or a finesse crankbait. And I lock down the drag system because I'm throwing like 20-pound braid with these suckers. And I was throwing a lipless and I yo-yoed it down and it hit. And when it took off, I heard this crack in the reel. And then all of a sudden the drag, I couldn't use the drag anymore. One of the bearings just snapped. But I got the snakehead in, and that thing was bigger than the board. And I didn't sign up for the side pot though, which was stupid.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I got in my video, I got this terrifying sound from my reel when the snakehead ate it. And it was like the fluoro that the fluoro bites into your reel. I think that's what it was. I don't think it was the drag, but it was a terrible sound. I thought I had broken something at first. So.
See, we got a ton of questions here over on Instagram. And then as always, guys, I apologize, but StreamYard doesn't let me share Instagram comments because it's stupid. Let's start with Adri Fishing. Ardry Fishing. I don't know why. I just use your regular name, dude. What made you pick up going to the lipless? And then he also said chrome versus red.
So I did start with red on practice, and I wasn't getting any bites with it. So I flipped over to chrome, and it started working. So that was pretty straightforward. I did have in mind to start with red, but for whatever reason, again, the darker colors weren't. I just noticed something was off with those because I had that black and blue chatterbait too, and it wasn't drawing as many strikes. Or maybe it's in my head. I don't know, but I tried it for a while and flipped over to something else and started getting bites. So I kind of, you never really know if it's actually just luck or, did you just flip over at the right time or whatever. So, yeah.
And then we have a couple more questions here from Let's see. Josh 2886. Is the side pot an app? Where do we get it? Where are you all fishing? So let me break this down. The side pot is so for NVKBA, with all the acronyms fishing, because my brain won't let me do all these acronyms, Chesapeake Bay and then Mid Atlantic Kayak. There's also the Snakehead. I call them the Snakehead Club. That's not even correct, but the VKE. They did a Snakehead side pot in this, which was really, really cool. And that was talked about at the captain's meeting 24 hours before the tournament kickoff. Now, the other two questions here that we can get into, where are you all fishing and main river or creeks? I'll speak for myself. I was fishing Piscataway. I just felt like I didn't expect to win. I just wanted to have a solid finish to get off the title. And I knew there was a good high tide bite I could get on. And I had nothing else. And I knew that. And I was gambling. And it worked out great for the first 90 minutes. And then then I was bleeding the rest of the day. But so, yeah, that's my day.
I was fishing Occoquan River, and it was kind of, I don't know if it's Belmont Bay there or the river. It's kind of where it diverges and opens up. So it's kind of I would say like kind of a creek mouth, which, those are always good when there's current flowing to, I've found, fish those. Because the bass will definitely set up in there as kind of bait, siphons through there. So not sure if that had much to do with it, but that's where the spot was.
We got another one. Dude, you got to like switch over to YouTube, bud, so I can actually post your comment here. So it doesn't look like I'm just reading off one of my 6 monitors. Thomas, did you find any grass in Piscataway? I found some. There's small little clumps. The biggest thing is if the lily pads or the spatter dock has a bunch of them. And if you go way back, like way the hell back in the back of Piscataway, there are fish that are keying in on bait fish and minnows right now. Do I think it's the winning bag? Probably not. What I did see from this last weekend, because we did have some people that did fish Piscataway, I think Piscataway got hit extremely hard, and there hasn't been a new wave of females to move up yet, because on Sunday at least, again, I know the Potomac Team Series was on Saturday, all the weights were down. It took 23 pounds on Saturday, I think, to win the Potomac teams. For our 20 to 30 boat tournament, it did not take anywhere near that. And some of them are good sticks. And I don't know if it was the temperature change or just that everyone in the Potomac teams, just drilled the river. I don't know what happened. Let's see. And then let's see, Josh. Okay, we got that one done. Is there any other questions? So you got another one from Josh 2886. I didn't even get a chance to finish the rest of the last episode before you post it again. Dude, by next year, I want 4 to 6 episodes per week. So we'll just be a radio show at that point, and we'll see. We'll flood your eardrums. Sweet. That's all the questions. Awesome. So at what point did you feel like you had this thing, you felt confident that you locked something up?
I think when I caught that big fish at the end, and it put me over 90. 90, I mean, you never know. There's always that last minute, anxiety of going back to the ramp, who submitted things. And so I wasn't getting my hopes up too high, but I knew I had a really good bag. I thought that I had a chance to win it. And either way, I was just happy with, again, my performance. Like it exceeded my expectations out there. Like I was just really enthused by what I found, my ability to kind of put together the patterns and kind of strategize along the day with the changing conditions. And so, I think you can have a lot of personal wins in a day, even if you don't win the actual tournament. Like you can certainly have a lot of personal wins for yourself. And I try to always look at that. Did I learn something? Did I adapt? Did I make the right decisions? And even if I didn't, what did I learn from that? And so, I felt really good about it. I thought that maybe I had a chance, and probably a pretty good chance, just knowing where the leaderboard was. But there's always that last hour where you never know who's going to upload something kind of at the last minute. So, so it was, there was still a little bit of anxiety going into that, but it was just a relief and just a rush of winning yet again on, in like you said, Thomas, in a shorter span of time, coming off of that Lake Mooney win, anytime you put together a string, like it feels great because it wasn't just a one-off. It wasn't just, hey, I got lucky this day, but you kind of are putting together, you know, patterns and a mindset that works for you. So it was awesome.
You now have a first place and a top 10. You're in a good place for Angler of the Year. Let's talk about the rest of the season. And I guess the next one is the Shenandoah River.
Yep, and I'm not going to be able to fish it. I've got a Cub Scout camping trip with my son that I promised him I was not going to miss. So I will be out there for that and out of pocket for that tournament. So the next one for me is really going to be kind of the Five Lakes 1 tournament coming up in June. So kind of getting my mind prepped on that and thinking about, they haven't released the names yet of the lakes. There's some theories out there on which ones might be. I think Mike Ortega posted something maybe earlier today on a couple, but just starting to think about what that one's going to look like and start getting things ready. Hopefully I'll have my autopilot by then. But if not, I'll be out there paddling.
What about the next event then in the schedule? Because I think it is the Battle of Five Lakes. It's the first one. Then you have the Upper Potomac. You have to fish smallmouth this year, I guess is my point. What are your feelings about the smallmouth?
Yeah, so man, I don't have any experience on the Upper Potomac at all. So my goal with that one is number one, be safe. Because I just don't know a whole lot about it. So I'm going to be looking to be as safe and cautious as possible out there, because I know that depending on the time of the year and the water levels, it can probably get a little gnarly out there. So I'll be paying very close attention to that. But other than that, I view it as another opportunity for learning, and hopefully I put together something decent. Again, just trying to stay consistent through the year, and make sure that my real goal is to get, into the top. I missed the top 30 by just a couple slots last year. And so I'd love to get kind of in that top 30, top 10 of AOY points and stay, again, consistent through the year. So that's really kind of what I'm shooting for.
I think you'll do it. I really think that this is going to be your year. It's a good start. You have plenty of time to practice. And that's honestly, and then we got a couple more questions here from Ben that we'll get into here too. But what events do you think you're going to practice for the most?
It really depends on my schedule. I tend to kind of do a day before. I work full time, so it's hard to kind of get out of work and, take the time away from the kids and the family as well. So, I've got those constraints to kind of work around. So typically I'm doing like a day before just to kind of get the lay of the land. And I plan on doing that for kind of the remainder of them. Maybe since we've got a month off, maybe I'll try to get out on something in May and see if I can kind of get some fundamental knowledge on everything.
Awesome stuff. And then we got a couple more questions here. And then as always, guys, if you'd like to, please join me on Patreon. It really helps out. We have a special here that the next two people to sign up for the Patreon will also receive a bonus $20 to Jake's Bait and Tackle. You also have access to our Potomac River fishing seminar that I did, where I really gave up a lot of information, a lot of things there. But it's the reason like this show can even run and I can put out so many episodes. So if you could, I really appreciate it. We got Ben again. What launch did you find that opened early? Most of the ones I looked at open right at line's end or just after.
That was a big challenge of trying to kind of I like to get situated in the morning. And so if I'm waiting like at the gate of something and it's I feel like I'm burning time when I could kind of just start to get mentally prepped, get everything kind of loaded up. So I found a public launch that is 24 hours open. It doesn't have like it's accessible and it's open. So I got there, got to stage. The rule said you have to stage until 5:45 in the general area of the launch, and then take off. So there's only so much time you could buy with that. You got to wait. But yeah, so that ended up working out. I don't think it saved me a whole lot of time from anybody else, honestly, though.
Let's see. We got a couple more questions here. I got Stephen Lloyd. Where do you like to fish? Where are your
I
favorite
love
lakes?
the res. Yeah, I love the res. I love Lake Anna. It's a place that I've always had good success with. So that one's a favorite of mine. Love the Potomac. And Mooney, I'm gonna have to get out a little bit more. Pleasure fish, yeah, I see your correction there, Stephen. It's probably the res because it's easy for me to get to from my house. It's pretty straightforward. So that's yeah. If I have to just pick somewhere where I'm going for an afternoon, that's where I'll be.
Now let's see. We got Everett. What's your favorite lure to use?
Um, Man, probably a drop shot, believe it or not. Actually, a jig number one. Drop shot. Like if I had my choice, I probably wouldn't be choosing a drop shot, but it catches fish so well, and I feel like it's a confidence lure for me. So a lot of it really comes down to my own confidence with stuff on a tournament. But I do love like moving baits. There's just something fun about that bite versus soaking something. And um, one thing, Thomas, you mentioned about like filming your outings a little bit. So I'm starting to learn more about how I fish based on watching that, like game day footage kind of stuff. And I'll notice when I'm like fishing something way too fast and in the moment you have no idea, right? Like you're just fishing and it feels natural to you, but you watch it later and you're like, wow, like when I slowed down, I started catching fish. And so sometimes it's something you can pick up on later on. So I found that to be of value too. But yeah, that swim jig, chatterbait, yeah, moving baits are my favorite.
Drop shot really is becoming one of my go-tos as well. It's so effective in so many different situations.
Yeah, it is, and you can fish it in a lot of different ways that people I think overlook. So a lot of people think of it more as a vertical presentation, but like a lot of the stuff, I drag a lot of baits, and I'll even drag a drop shot, and in certain circumstances, not in all, but depending on the cover, I can get strikes doing that, and I think it's the little weight bumps off rocks and things like that gives the worm a little vibration, and yeah, I think there's something to that, but yeah.
Let's see. And then guys, make sure we get all your questions in here too. And then, yeah, please just hit that like button. It really helps us out in the algorithm. Let's see. We already did what's your favorite lure. We did that one. We got Ben again. I am with you on the early to get situated. I was at Occoquan Regional Park at 3:30 in the morning. My God.
Good
All
grief,
right.
man.
Yeah. Yeah. Why do you need sleep? No one needs sleep. Come on.
Yep. Yeah, I know but I'll do that too, where I try to get up. I'm probably not at the launch by then anytime, but I'll try to, wake up, get out the door, get all my stuff together, and I'm up pretty bright and early usually. So,
Dude, I really appreciate it. And honestly, I want to talk to you. The last thing was the YouTube channel. Like what got you we talked a little bit about this last August, but what got you motivated to do that?
yeah, I think it was just kind of fun and curiosity, honestly. I'm not trying to make it big time on it. I just thought I like the process of making the videos. I like the process of revisiting the footage. I don't fish, every single day, right? So for me, these outings are kind of an event for me, and oftentimes I want to kind of go back and remember them and say like, oh wow, yeah, I remember when I won, this tournament or that tournament, and so some of it's just documenting my own experience, and I decided to post that out there. Mainly, the club's been awesome because I posted it out there just to see if anybody would be interested, and I got some great response. People really enjoyed watching it, and I think it's cool after the tournament to kind of watch what other people are doing and see how their tournament went, and so yeah, it's fun. I'm going to continue doing it all year long, no matter how I do in the tournaments, and I'll post something at least that kind of captivates what happened. And the channel name is Nerdy Bassin. If you If you look that up, you'll find it. And yeah, we'll be posting more videos all the way through the year.
Let's see, we got two more here. We got Everett. What kayak do you use? Just to reiterate that.
Yeah, for these tournaments, I was fishing a 106 PDL in both tournaments. I also have an Autopilot 120 that I'm still kind of getting my setup ready for that one to start fishing out of more. So that's the one I intend to go towards more full time, but I'm kind of in between kayaks right now. So still out of the 106.
River Goat. The River Goat. What's your favorite launch on the res?
I go Fountainhead usually because it's open early. The Lake Ridge one, or it's not Lake Ridge, but it's the park there. It tends to open a little bit later. So if you're going for like, a day or something like that, I'll go there. I haven't really fished the Bull Run section as much, so that's kind of on my list to try that out a little bit more, and check that out. So yeah, the great thing, we all talk about it all the time, is that we have so many options to us that are actually right under our nose. And even you may be fishing the res, but there's parts of the res you've never fished before, and you can find new water and check out new things all the time. So I feel like we've got tons of options nearby, and so we're blessed to really have that in the Northern Virginia area.
100%. No, dude, I can't thank you enough for coming on. I really appreciate it. As always, guys, link in the episode description to everything that we talked about. I have a really cool special guest for you guys next week. I'm just going to hint at it now. I'm not going to tell you anything, but if I can get this thing finalized by Wednesday, it's going to be a really, really cool guest for next Monday Night Live. So don't be missing that. As always, like and subscribe. It really helps us out in the algorithm to just try to, tell as many people about this show as possible. I want to keep putting out more episodes if you want them. And as long as you guys want to support the show, we'll be here. Like, subscribe to the channel. We'll see you next time on Fishing the DMV. Bye.
You're listening to Fishing the DMV with your hosts, Thomas Ahrens and Jared Mounts. Fishing the DMV is brought to you by Jake's Bait and Tackle, located in Winchester, Virginia.
If that doesn't get you